Alrighty, here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's up, Bridal Babes? I hope you're ready to talk weddings with me on another exciting episode of your favorite wedding show, Bridal Buzz. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're going to talk about the top 10, 11, I don't know, maybe even 12 lessons that I learned in my wedding planning process as a 2023 bride. Before we get started, make sure you hit that notifications button, subscribe if you like the content we're creating, find the link to our Instagram, TikTok, whatever you want in our bio, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first thing on my list of top lessons that I've learned in my wedding planning process is that you are going to be your biggest advocate. No matter how much you want your vendors, your friends, your family to care about your wedding as much as you do, it's just not mentally possible for them to understand the emotional ties that you have to your big day. And while this day is once in a lifetime for you, wedding vendors have sometimes up to 3-4 weddings in a weekend, and therefore you are the one that has to be speaking up for your opinions, advocating for your decisions. No one else is going to be there to do that for you. And that's not to say that you won't work with great vendors who understand what you want along the way. What I'm trying to say is if there's something specific that you are looking for, fight for it. You're gonna be the one that has to. For example, if there's a specific flower that you really want in your bouquet, a specific guest experience that you really want to have at your wedding reception, you're gonna have to have the courage along the way to say, hey, actually, this is what I really wanna do. I don't want to have roses, or I don't want to have peonies in my bouquet. I want to have this, that, or the other. You're the one that's going to have to speak up, and at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it because it's your day and no one else's. The next thing on my list of lessons learned is that social media can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse. There are so many fun, unique ideas, amazing wedding vendors, other brides and grooms that you can learn from on social media while you're scrolling, but it can also be pretty toxic. For starters, it's really hard to tell what something can cost just from watching a video or seeing a picture on Instagram. Secondly, some of these things just aren't physically available in the wedding scene near you. Some flowers can cost buku amounts of money to get to your location from wherever they naturally grow. And depending on the size of your scene, what's trending in your city, some rentals might not be available, some venue aesthetics might not be available. So it's really important for you, if you're using social media, to really take everything with a grain of salt. My best piece of advice would be to unfollow the people that make you feel some type of way and stick to those local recommendations that can actually help you along your wedding planning journey. If you find scrolling through TikTok and finding fun DIYs or, budget hacks, then go for it. But if that's not healthy for you to do, then there are so many other ways for you to plan an amazing day besides endless doom scroll that you can find on social media. Wow. And piggybacking off of the social media idea, my next lesson that I had to learn was don't judge a vendor by their Instagram. Now, again, of course, Instagram is an incredible place to find vendors that you might not have been able to find online, you might not have been able to find through your friend who just got married, and to get that local inspiration that can actually help you with your personal wedding. But a good photo can only say so much. What you can't see in that photo is what it's like to actually work with that vendor. Even as someone who's been in the industry for about 3 years now, I still had a lot to learn about the personality of working with a lot of these vendors. And key point here, you are not just booking a photo, you are booking a person, especially for roles that are gonna be there physically with you on your wedding day. Hair and makeup, photographer, planner, venue coordinator, DJ, bartenders, people that are gonna be there and that are gonna impact the energy of your event. It's crucial that you not just look at their Instagram and judge them based off of the photos that they're posting, but that you do a proper vetting process. Word of mouth and referrals are the most popular ways to find vendors in the wedding industry for a reason. So if you're finding vendors on Instagram and you wanna make sure that they're actually the kind of person you wanna work with, make sure you find couples that have worked with them in the past. An easy way to do this is looking at their tagged section or scrolling through and seeing if they've tagged their own couples, reaching out to those couples, asking them the questions about what it was like to actually work with them, what were their favorite things about working with them, what did they not like about working with them, would they recommend them to a future couple, things like that, to just add that extra layer of security before spending all of that money booking a vendor that you might have aesthetically really vibed with, but at the end of the day, you just didn't end up meshing. But besides picking vendors, picking colors, finding your venue, what I came to find in my wedding experience was that the hardest part about wedding planning wasn't even planning the wedding itself. It was the family dynamics, the hard conversations, the advocating for myself as a bride. Those are the things that actually were way more difficult than picking out what my signature drink was gonna be and how many floral arrangements were gonna go on each table. So I think it's important to remember here that self-love in the wedding planning process is crucial. Having time for yourself to just ground, get back to who you are, what matters most, is so important to make sure that you're not emotionally overwhelmed on what is supposed to be like one of the most special days of your life. Wow. I think every couple is going to face something, even if it's something small. It's important to do that prep work to make sure that you're in the best state of mind on your big day. What does that look like? Well, depending on who you are, it could look like giving yourself extra quiet time with God, making sure you get on your yoga mat a couple more times a week than you normally would, going on walks, having one day a week where you maybe just don't think about anything wedding related. And if your wedding season is bringing up a lot of emotion, then maybe consider counseling. Find a friend that you know that you can go to no matter what, and it's just gonna be open ears for whatever it is that you're going through. And to follow up with that, because sometimes it's kind of hard to remember in the process, but the ability to have a wedding is a blessing. This type of event is not easy to throw. It's emotionally taxing, financially taxing, mentally, physically, everything, you name it. Weddings are a lot. But it's important to remember that not everybody gets that chance to have the proper wedding experience. And while it might be easy to say, oh, I wish we could have eloped, or oh, we should have just done a city hall wedding. Sure, it's okay to feel that way, but there are some people where they don't have any other option. So if you're somebody who's having that ability to plan a wedding, have family and friends there, rent a venue, feed them nice catering, just remember that this is really a blessing. And the most important part about that day is that you're marrying the person you love, and the people that support you most are choosing to be there. Another lesson that I personally learned in my wedding planning experience is that destination weddings add a lot of extra complications for your guests to be able to attend. And yes, this might seem obvious to some, but it's not really something I thought about when deciding to have my wedding in a city that was minimum an hour away from the closest airport. I also had my wedding in a city that doesn't have a lot of hotels. So these things combined made it a little bit more difficult for some of my friends and family to be able to attend my wedding. And while I wouldn't change the location for anything in the world, it's still important for me to share that because it's not something that I really thought about ahead of time. And it was hard for me to kind of process the emotion of knowing that certain people weren't going to be able to be there, not because they didn't want to be there, but because they just couldn't. So if you feel like the financial and time pressures of a destination wedding aren't going to be beneficial for your wedding guests, you might want to consider having your wedding in a city or a space that is more accessible to more people. It just depends on what your priority is for your wedding. And to kind of stay in that wedding guest category, something that I learned in my wedding planning process was that guest experiences are actually the most important thing. And this might just be a personal preference, but when I realized how much fun my guests were having at my wedding, I knew that the decisions I made to have things like a caricature artist and a photo booth and to spend extra money on that custom vinyl dance floor, I realized it was all worth it. And don't get me wrong, design has a huge impact, just like that energy of your vendors do. When you have incredible things for your guests to be doing during your wedding, you're not gonna be thinking about the color of your table, what is it called? Linens, or the size of your hanging floral piece. All right, just had to switch my battery out on my camera, so we're back, we're live, we're at it again. But yes, back to what I was saying. For me, I think some of the best money that I spent on my wedding was for those guest experiences. So if you're trying to figure out what should my priority be here, should I spend more money on flowers? Should I spend more money on my dress? At the end of the day, the things that the guests at your wedding are going to remember most, and the thing that you're going to remember, speaking from my own experience, is those guests having a good time. So just remember to take those vendors and those experiences into consideration when budgeting out and planning your day. And another thing to think about when you're budgeting and planning out your day is that trends will come and go, but your taste is what matters most. So if you are scrolling on TikTok and see a video of somebody saying,
"These are the 3 trends I hate seeing in 2020 blah blah wedding,"
and one of your ideas is in there, just keep scrolling, because we all have our own preferences at the end of the day. And when you look back on your wedding, you're gonna remember the fact that you stuck to what you wanted, had your special day, and didn't just cave into societal pressures to have certain things or not have certain things at your wedding. And I'm not gonna tell you don't use trends because you don't want to be able to age your wedding. I think that idea is ridiculous, because obviously you're celebrating your wedding anniversary, your wedding year. You should be excited and happy to be like, yeah, I got married in 2023. This was in then, and that was out then, and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that you don't have to have a trendy wedding to have an amazing wedding. You don't have to get a neon sign or beer burrows or have certain floral aesthetic and wear a certain gown designer in order to feel like you're having that perfect wedding. Because at the end of the day, everyone's perception of what is perfect is going to be different. And you, my friend, are the one that has to decide what it is that you want at your wedding. Do you want to wear a pink dress? Do it. Do you want to wear sneakers down the aisle? Do it. But also, like, do you want to wear a hand-me-down gown? Do it. Do you want to have certain religious traditions practiced in your ceremony? Do it. Your taste is what matters most. Period. Another important lesson that I learned was that if something is feeling forced or rushed, take a step back, sleep on the decision, and take your time making it. When you're planning a wedding, you don't ever want to make decisions because you're feeling like, I have to make this decision right now. I don't care. You need to take your time. If the vendor is no longer available, if the rental is no longer available because you didn't feel 100% sure about the decision you were making, then it wasn't meant to be. When I started planning my wedding, it was early 2022. Everyone in the world was saying, act fast. This is the busiest wedding season since 1982 or something like that. And there was a lot of pressure to just like get things done. Because if you didn't, there was a chance that you might not book your dream venue. You might not get to work with your dream photographer. And so a lot of my early decision making for my wedding definitely felt rushed. I felt like I had to like secure the bag, you know what I mean? So I don't want any other couple to feel like they're in that space of just like, I have to get this done now. Because at the end of the day, unless you're planning a wedding in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you have time. You're going to be okay, and your day is going to be great, no matter if that vendor got booked or not. So take your time, sleep on it, make sure you feel 100% not just about the business that you're working with, but the person. All right, Bridal Babes, we have just 2 more things on our list of lessons that I learned in my wedding planning process. Second to last is going to be that you've got to be okay with going with plan B sometimes. I know it's kind of contradictory to what I said prior, but at the end of the day, not everything is going to go exactly to the way you planned it. And that is just kind of like part of the magic of the event industry, but it's something that can also be quite startling if you're not preparing for it ahead of time. So yes, you spent time and money planning this amazing day. You get there and what? Something broke on the way to the venue. A flower wasn't available because it wasn't in season or it was just too expensive to get here on time. Maybe the top tier of the cake fell off of the cake on the way over. There's literally no way for you to know what's going to happen ahead of time. So something that my husband reminded me of multiple times over our wedding weekend was to be like a duck and just let the water glide off. because there are only a few things that you have direct control over on that day, and the things that you don't, you just have to be okay with, honestly, whatever is going to happen. Your earrings might break, your bouquet might not show up, your bridesmaid might pass out or get sick the morning of. These are things that just happen when you're working with real people in this kind of way. So make sure that no matter what goes wrong on your day, you're living in the moment. You're rolling with the punches, you're being the duck, and you're just letting that water glide off, okay? And last but absolutely not least on my list of lessons learned in my wedding planning process, time is priceless on your wedding day. If there is a way to spend money to make sure that you get the most time possible, do it. Time flies by when you're having fun, and especially on a day that you've been dreaming of your whole life. There's only so much time that you can physically have in that day. Milk it, make the most of it where you can. For me and my husband, we knew that we had to have a weekend wedding. It was so important for us to spend the most quality time possible with the people that were prioritizing us on that big day. Having 3 events spread out over 3 days was actually the only way I was able to get time in, not just saying, hi, thanks for coming, but getting actual quality time in with my wedding guests. And again, because I had a destination wedding, I wanted to make sure that people's time was, that people's time was well spent.
So embarrassing, guys.
If you can't tell by my battery dying and now my video gimbal stabilizer dying, this is my first video back in a new studio, so bear with me. But thank God we were on our last lesson. Make sure you soak up that time. Do what you can to make the most of it. If you can book the venue that you're booking for an hour extra, do it. If you can have an after party or a goodbye brunch, do it. These are the things that after your wedding weekend, you're gonna look back and say, wow, I'm so glad that I didn't feel rushed on my day, that I didn't feel like I didn't have enough time to talk to everybody. I didn't have enough time to actually experience my own wedding. Those are the things that are gonna matter more than the little design details and things like that. So that sums up my, I don't know of how many that was, but my list of lessons that I learned as a 2023 bride. If you found this video helpful, make sure you head to the comments and let me know what you learned. Hit that subscribe button, share this video with your fiance friend, and stay tuned for more wedding content here on YouTube, on the podcast, TikTok, Instagram. We're here to make sure that you are the most prepared that you can be for your big day. So I'll see you next time.